We are live. Hey, everybody. We're here for an interview with D. Thomas on the Environmental Court. D, go ahead and say hello to the folks.
Hello, Ethan. How you doing? Hello, everybody.
I'm doing good. It's good to be here with you. So, tell us a story. Tell us, tell us what you got to say, so we can, so the people have the knowledge and know what actions they can take.
Well, it's the main thing is people have never heard of this environmental court, and that's the only court that they actually have. So they need to learn about it, because these so-called courts of the United States are nothing but corporate administrative corporations impersonating courts. And to start with, a corporation cannot be a court. In Black's law, it's very clear that a court is an agency of the sovereign, and his suit and his regal retinue wherever they so wish to convene. The key word is sovereignty. The sovereign in his suit. The sovereign. A corporation is not sovereign and never has been sovereign. It's been confirmed by the Supreme Court, that no state is sovereign because they're all corporations. So they don't have courts. Actually, what happened was a bar association in 1973 was enabled by President Nixon to take absolutely control of all the courts of the United States. And the bar association is born military agency that's subject to the Crown Temple and is foreign to the people. They have no standing on America in any way, shape, or form. To start with, they're all felons. Why are they felons? Why are every member of government, why is every member of government a felon?
I believe it has something to do with the environmental laws.
It did. In 1948, of course, the communists were getting a big hold on America in 1948 through Congress and such, and these municipalities that were starting up throughout all these little cities were popping up to be municipalities like the big cities with sewer systems, putting in sewers. Sewers were going in everywhere. Publicly owned wastewater treatment works is what they referred to them as in the law. Well, in 1948, there was a Federal Water Pollution Control Act of 1948 that mandated everybody had to connect to the sewers. Mandated sewers were to be installed, and everybody's going to have to connect to them. Well, that didn't last very long, because through the 40s, they started realizing that they had a major problem collecting all this sewage and trying to treat it. Actually, they knew they weren't treating it. They had technology already. They had since I'd say half a century by that time, that they already knew that what it did is it removed everything you could see in the sewage, but everything that you couldn't see remained. And through the 50s, they started to realize that that was not the way to manage the sewage generated by the population, is to collect it, and then they were dumping it all into the lakes, rivers, streams, all of our drinking water resources. And that was poisoning all of our drinking water resources. So Congress, started by the Congress of JFK, was assigned the duty to amend this Federal Water Pollution Control Act. amended to where all pollutants had to be dealt with at that source. All decentralized, not centralized, but decentralized. And so that Congress set out, and it took them several years to do it, but the last act of that Congress of JFK on October 18th, 1972, overriding President Nixon's veto of that law, overrode it and made the Federal Water Pollution Control Act amendments of 1972 under Public Law 92-500. And those amendments consisted of 13 sections, of which there was not a one because it was an amendment, so the amendment started with Section 2. And that was the amendment of the previous 1948 version of the Federal Water Pollution Control Act that mandated public sewers. The Federal Water Pollution Control Act amendments of 1972, Section 2, mandated all pollutants be eliminated at the source, and before there was any discharge into any publicly owned treatment works, there had to be technology installed at the source of those man-made, man-induced pollutants to remove them at each individual source before they could migrate to cause water and other environmental pollution, and also to produce and reclaim and repurify the water at source so it could be reused to reduce the demand on our public drinking water supplies. That was the reason the law was created, because we were just wasting water. Wasting water became an unlawful act as of July 1, 1973. On July 1, 1973, according to the law, it became an unlawful act to flush your toilet without having that technology mandated, which is the national standard of performance, which is the best available demonstrated control technology to remove, to eliminate. The term in the law is to eliminate, where possible, all pollutants being discharged. The law says it's unlawful for any person to discharge a pollutant.
So what happened after that law was created?
Nixon put the bar associations, put the International Bar Association in control of all the courts of the United States. So we lost all of our judiciary to the enemy. And they were instructed to disregard that law. Disregard that law. We're not going to recognize that law. We're not going to recognize it or enforce the law. The law was supposed to be enforced by all district courts. And so they avoided to do that in many different ways. They falsified the congressional documents, the Public Law 92-500. They falsified the Section 309 that mandates federal enforcement. And then when they codified, sure, the EPA was involved in this, Environmental Pollution Agency. When they codified the Federal Water Pollution Control Act under Title 33, Section 1251 at C, they codified the enforcement section. They removed federal from the title of the section and just put enforcement. And they inserted behind A which was started with A1, describing that the district courts had jurisdiction. They took the A and they added state enforcement and compliance orders. So they falsified the document to suggest that the state had the authority to administer enforcement, when in fact, under that section 70 of Title 33, which is state authority, is in fact state duty. They have a duty to comply. The state, the political subdivisions, and the interstate agencies were the ones that were in violation of this law, and they were the ones to be held accountable for complying with the law. So that was the first attempt to escape compliance with the law, is that they just put the fox in control of the hen house, the fox guarding the hen house.
Okay, so for some clarity for the listeners, you're saying they. Are you referring to the bar, or is this the bar and our Congress?
Deep state includes. It wasn't Congress. That was a good act of Congress. Now the 93rd Congress was a Nixon Congress. But when I say they, those are the ones responsible for codifying congressional laws of the land that are made by Congress. The ones responsible to codify that. I'm sure that the EPA and the Bar Association were in control and charge, because they're the ones that are put in charge of that to keep the sewage flowing, to keep the poison going. I mean, the Bar Association, the Society of Civil Engineers are the two legs of the stool of the municipality that support the poisoning of our drinking waters, of all of our waters. And so, due to the fact that John F. Kennedy knew that these municipalities and what they were doing, and knew that the revenue generated from the sewer revenue was the revenue that funded the deep state. The deep state starts at every municipality. The government employees are deep state. Deep state, what is deep state? Well, they're the United States wastewater management industry is the deep state. You remove this, you bring them into compliance. The Federal Water Pollution Control Act knew that the city, that the political subdivisions, that the corporations and the states were the ones liable, and that new amendment provided the funds for the state, the political subdivisions, and all corporations to provide technology, the best available demonstrated control technology at every single source, every home, every building, every office, every complex, every high-rise. Had to have technology to contain and control the sewage coming out of those buildings, to eliminate all discharge of pollutants at that source. And that's the federal law. And to not do that is a minimum of a half a dozen felonies each day. Well, they knew coming into this that the United States courts were not going to recognize and enforce that law. It took a while for that law to be created. It's an 88-page document. A lot of effort, and a lot of research.
Wow.
One of my mentors sat on a committee in the late 60s and helping to develop that law. To establish at-source control of all pollutants. Well, they didn't do it. They didn't honor that law. They, the deep state, the government, our enemy, who they are. That consists of mainly all members of municipal government associated with this criminal enterprise. So the Congress day of case Congress knew they were not going to be able, that the courts of the United States and the courts of the states were not going to honor this law. So they made a provision for there to be an environmental court, which was supposed to be, and that was under Section 9 of that Public Law 92-500. Section 9 was where Congress provided for an environmental court to be established, and it to be a separate court and separate court system from the United States court, because the violators of the law were going to be the United States and all those associated with their courts. The state, political subdivisions, and interstate agencies, all corporations were the ones who the law specifically targeted as the persons who were going to be accountable and held accountable and liable to comply with this law. So that's why Congress established this provision for a separate court and separate court system to be established, referred to as the environmental court.
And after Congress, after Congress established that, what happened? Why didn't that court just start taking action?
Because it had to be created, had to be commissioned.
And why didn't it get commissioned?
Well, because the president and the attorney general were the ones, the President Nixon, who vetoed the law. He was the president at the time, and so that law mandated that the president and the attorney general do a report and provide a report as to in preparation of commissioning that court. And of course, it was not in their best interest.
Sounds like a conspiracy on their part to defraud us of the court.
Oh, they did. Yeah, they did. Yeah, absolutely. They did. And they did until 2013. It's when we discovered that provision for that court was made by Congress. And that's when we, the people, commissioned the court. The court's an environmental court. Environmental, anything environmental is living, is life. Their corporate administrative agencies and person courts are dead. They're dead courts. They're probate courts. That's all they are. They have no status. They have no standing at law because there are no courts at all.
They're impersonating. They're not. There's no record there. They're not a court of record. They're a corporation calling themselves a court. Is that correct?
Correct. They're just corporations. Corporations are agents of the enemy of the people. Corporations has nothing to do with America. Corporations are controlled by the Crown Temple, by the enemy of the people. And they're operating to poison and destroy us. They're operating chemical, biological weapons of mass destruction. Most people know it's toilets, which no one would ever think that a toilet was a weapon of mass destruction.
They probably don't realize that these are warfare agents as well. Biological warfare agents, is that correct?
That's correct. That's what the law says. The law provides for that all these chemical, biological pollutants, all these radiological fluorides, all those pollutants, all those toxic pollutants are defined as warfare agents. And it's warfare agents that falls into the military jurisdiction. And so that's why that court is a separate court and separate court system, because it's literally the court of the people having military jurisdiction.
Wow. So I can understand the pollutants that come out of our body that go into the toilet. Is fluoride coming out of our body and going into the toilet, or are they adding that? Or are
No,
we,
they're adding.
or I know they're adding it. So what I'm asking is, are we also contributing to fluoride, or is that something that they're just absolutely contributing that wouldn't exist if they didn't?
No, fluoride is a byproduct of aluminum.
It's not coming from us.
Not us personally, huh? No,
So that's really ugly. They're trying to kill us every way they can, I think.
that's what their mission is. One, they want to kill us because as soon as we're dead, our death certificate justifies them collecting all of our states, and that our trusts and estates that have been created off of our name in all capital letters, that they identity that they stole from us at birth, failure to disclose to the mother what they were doing when they got her to sign for the birth certificate. They literally created you into a entity that was a corporate entity so that they could have jurisdiction over that entity, and then you would show up in court and you're to be held as surety for that entity. So you're the body that they can grab and put in custody as a surety for that entity that you don't even have a clue.
Very diabolical. Very
I'm sorry?
diabolical.
So that's why the court was not established, and that's why we did establish it. We commissioned it. We, the people, commissioned that court and notified 15 significant federal agencies of the commissioning of the court.
And this was in 2000. The notices, were they in 2013, or do you know?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
And so
the notices all went out. Immediately gave a notice. The FBI. There's 15 different ones. Off the top of my head, I don't remember them all. But of course, the Coast Guard was noticed because the Coast Guard are the ones charged with administering enforcement of the law under a presidential executive order 11735 in 1973, when the president appointed the Coast Guard to be the enforcement agency of this law. And they're military, because it's a military violation, appointed the Coast Guard and to be in charge of enforcement of this law. Well, the Coast Guard is one of the largest polluters of the law, polluters and violators of the law, so obviously not a lot of enforcement got done.
In the Coast Guard, they're responsible for inland waters as well, right?
They're responsible for all hazardous substances. That's onshore and offshore.
Oh my!
That's who's in charge. So the Coast Guard was personally served, and these were personally served in Washington, D.C., their head offices or head agencies, and it was an organization in Washington, D.C. who did the service, and we have documentation on all the service and who received it and what their description was, the whole thing. So everyone was served, and these notices of the commissioning of the environmental court were received, and there were no disputes. No one disputed the court. The FBI was notified. Even the United States Supreme Court, both the United States Supreme Courts were notified.
I imagine the EPA was notified.
Of course, yeah. Environmental Protection Agency was notified.
National Institute of Health.
Everybody that was anybody was notified of the commissioning of the court. I even think the United Nations were notified.
Wow.
Because this is an international law. The law is codified under international admiralty maritime law. It's military, international, law. So the court has military international jurisdiction over all matters of the environment.
That's a high court.
It's the highest court on the land, air, water, and sea.
That's a
Law.
powerful court.
It's the court of law.
And
Land,
this court has
air.
survived several challenges. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. This, of course. I mean, it's the when the judges get served, the first thing they do is they try to get the FBI involved to shut it down and prove it's not valid and such. So over the past 10 years, I'd say at least a half a dozen times that I've been told. The FBI has been called in to investigate this court and all these charges and things that were brought against these judges and stuff. At the end of the day, we're never notified. The court's never notified. So the reason is because it's real. And it's a real court commissioned by the people, of, for, and by the people. That gives the people supreme authority over every one of their agencies in government.
So after they stole everything from us, Congress enacted this court, and they hid it from us. And now we have it.
Because of poisoning our water, Congress enacted the court. Because of poisoning, because our water resources were being poisoned by publicly owned treatment works, by collecting sewage into large pipes and dumping it into our lakes, rivers, creeks, water streams. It was poisoning all of our water resources. That's why
and here we are today. So tell the people about the actions being taken through the environmental court, through service of writs of execution, and explain that who can do this, who can serve these writs.
it's the court of the people.
Right.
Like I said, it's a court of the people. The court doesn't do anything. Okay, it's
Right.
the people.
Right.
The
They
people,
do it. They're doing it on the authority provided
law.
by the law and through the jurisdiction of the court. So any one of us can be a process server to these trees.
That's the way the law was set out. The law was set out to enable the citizens to be the power to administer the enforcement of the court. That's under Title 33. It's codified under Title 33, Section 1365, in citizen suits. It's very clear that the ones who have the power and authority to administer enforcement of this environmental law are the citizens. Government won't do it because they're the ones in violation. They're the criminals. So it has to be the citizens. It has to be the people. There are people and persons. The citizens, and any citizen of any citizenship has full authority to bring an action against any government entity or person
Any
who is
citizen of
operating in violation of this law.
any citizen of any citizenship.
That's correct. That's what it clearly states right under Section 1365. Every one that cares about getting America back should go to Section 1365 of Title 33, and you should learn that law like the back of your hand. That section like the back of your hand, and it's got hot links. You can go to Cornell, and it's a complete study, and you just learn what your power is, what your duty is. It's non-discretional. It states right in that section it's non-discretional. That means it's a strict liability statute, not only for compliance, but for the people to administer enforcement. It's our duty. It's our duty. We're the ones that have the duty to keep the water clean. To bring enforcement against those who don't keep our water clean. That's what we have the duty to do. And that's what's being done. And so the court over the years has done about 10 years since it was commissioned, probably 300 actions. And most recently, the court has provided what's referred to as writs of execution. Writs of execution, writs are what all lawful courts are authorized to issue writs. Any court established by act of Congress, such as and just like the Supreme Court of the United States has power and authority to issue writs. And so writs are the power of the people. You got to have a lawful court before you can have lawful authority to carry and execute writs. If the court's not legitimate, the writs are no good. And that's the very first thing that they've been doing. They receive this, the very first thing they do, they start to disqualify the court. You got to disqualify the court. Think about it. If you're to receive these writs and you all of a sudden hit with a $1.5 million fine for committing these felony violations each day, the first thing you're going to want to do is try to prove that that court that issued that writ doesn't have any standing or authority to issue that writ. So the first thing that happens is they call the FBI. Call for a federal investigation to pursue.
By now, the FBI ought to just be able to give them a straight answer.
Well, I imagine they can, because I know at least a half a dozen times I was told that the FBI was asking questions, was doing an investigation on the environmental court. And I said, about time, they should have. All they got to do is go look at the records. They were served notice back in 2013 at the commissioning of the court. So it's no problem. We don't mind them doing an investigation. The more investigation they do, the more learning they do.
Right.
And the more learning they do, the more people start realizing this is a real court. And by golly, guess what? They can be held accountable for the wrongs they're doing. They can be held accountable.
And
the writs of the court are legitimate.
And the thing is, everyone is being poisoned. There isn't anyone that's not being poisoned. So these people are, in spite of being poisoned by the system that they keep protecting, they continue to protect it. That is truly evil action.
Well, they're in collusion. They're operating in collusion, and start with.
And probably, if anybody wants to stand up, their life just gets destroyed. Any one of those, any one of those bar agents or anybody in government who wants to speak up, they probably don't, because they know that their life will be destroyed.
Right, they lose their income. They'd be fired.
Yes.
That's what they do. They attack your livelihood.
Yes, they do.
First thing they do is attack your livelihood.
It's hard to survive without a livelihood.
That's why they attack it. That's why they deny it. Shut them down. Take away the money. And they have ways of doing that. They got many ways of doing that. They can make life miserable on you once you get targeted.
All right. So now the people have pretty much the same type of weapon to use back against them from serving these writs and the processes that would follow afterwards, even to affect their credit rating. Is that correct? You want to explain that a little, Tom? Details?
Well, it's not the same. It's not the same weapon. I don't know what you mean when you say the same weapon.
Well, I mean, not the same, but they destroy our anybody who wants to go against them, they're going to go after their livelihood. Now, if you take away, you get them convicted for 6 felonies, they can't hold a job. You get that reported to the credit agency, they can't get credit. So that's what I was alluding to. If that provides a little clarity or needs clarity.
That's the direction I believe that the court and people associated with the court, I believe, are moving in that direction now, and that is to affect their credit rating as a result of these fines. And then the next thing is the court does have authority to issue writs. Well, there's such a thing as a writ of body attachment. The fine is a order of the court. The writ of execution is an order of the court for them to pay the fine.
And what's the
failure for them to pay the fine within 30 days?
That's a pretty substantial fine, isn't it?
Yeah. Failure for them to pay that fine within 30 days constitutes a contempt of court, because they didn't comply with the court order to settle the debt within 30 days. So it's a contempt of court. That contempt of court justifies the court to issue a writ of body attachment. Like I said, because it's a true court established back to Congress. It has authority under Title 28, Section 1651 to issue writs and to do anything necessary in order to administer justice.
And that subjects them to citizen arrest?
Absolutely. Citizens have the authority. Any citizen of any citizenship is given the authority to take action against these tyrants. So citizens' arrests are authorized. But that's the key is having a court that has the authority to issue writs. And that's what the environmental court is for the people. It has the authority to issue writs, lawful writs, that's able to accomplish justice. Writs of body attachment are going to be issued based on the fact that the contempt of court justifies the writ of body attachment. The fact that they didn't pay the fine, it's a debt. And now it's not only a civil, but also a criminal act. But not only criminal, but civil, because now they have a debt and they fail to pay the debt within a timely manner, or settle the account, or take action to settle the account. And when they didn't do it, then the court issues a writ of body attachment. And a writ of body attachment is able to be carried out and administered by any citizen. Any citizen that has that writ in their hand is authorized to take that person into custody and transport them to wherever they're going to be held until such time as the debt has been paid.
All right. Now, what means are available for collecting this debt? Are there insurance companies involved? Are there personal assets involved? What can you tell us about that?
I can't tell you much about that part. I'm not really involved in the collection end of it.
I see. Okay.
Whatever a judgment award is, and however judgment awards are collected, that's how you collect it. Now I believe these tyrants have liability insurance, and so I believe that's who is going to be focused on is the liability insurance, that they're going to be held accountable because they're the ones that insured this tyrant. So I believe the liability insurance companies are the ones that are going to be held accountable by the court to pay the debt of the tyrant. Because
It sounds like that could break the insurance companies.
I doubt it, because insurance companies are owned by the Vatican.
Ah,
It's going to take an awful
never,
lot to break them.
never ending money.
Correct.
All right, so there's several different writs for responsible corporate officer, elected or appointed, organization, and a bar member in government. Is that correct?
That's the way it's divided up right now. And there are basically three writ packages that citizens can execute and serve. They can fill them out. There's directions as to how to fill them out and serve them, and they can serve them via fax. And there's a way that we describe how they can serve them via fax and do it stealth. Very important to not disclose who you are as a service agent. So yes, it's three different classes and categories that we've got them divided up into. Bar agents in government, attorneys in government, that's not even allowed. So we call it the instant Moab, mother of all bombs, to hit them with, because they're finished. If they're involved in government whatsoever, then we hit them with the 6 felonies and they're terminated.
So
The other two classes and categories are those defined under criminal law, as defined under Title 33, Section 19C3A. That explains that the particular class and category of person referred to as a responsible corporate officer is the person to be held accountable criminally liable for operating in violation of this law. Any and all responsible corporate officers. Now that includes elected officials and regular appointed officials, such as the wastewater management, the public works director. He's not elected. I don't believe he's elected. I believe he's appointed. You'll notice that all the deep state members that keep the sewage flowing are appointed, and none of them are elected, because they got to keep the right people in position to keep it all going. And we don't want to take a chance on electing someone that's going to mess up the program. So, but they all have a principal. Even the appointed ones have a principal who is elected. So the principal who's elected is identified with a fax number, and then the responsible corporate officers who are appointed, who don't have fax numbers for service, are listed under the class of elected officials. All elected officials have to have a fax number. And under Title V, fax service is lawful service of process.
And with the e-fax service, you have anonymity. Is that correct?
Correct. If you do it correctly, you've got to change some settings in a cover page. We use Humble Fax is the one we recommend. $10 a month, unlimited faxing, and you can have up to 10 users on your fax number. So if someone's not available that can't really have that $10 a month liability, they can team up with somebody that has it already, that's already signed up for it, and become one of their users. And yes, the way that you have to have the settings changed to as provided for. I know in the PBI channel, in the PBI, the People's Bureau of Investigation channel, there are instructions as to how to change the settings on the cover sheet so that you have anonymity, as you say.
All
We
right.
urge that. We don't want anybody to let them know who's serving them, because you really got to take this serious, because you're stripping these people that you drop these writs of execution on. They're stripped of their career for life. It's good. It's really good, but they're very bad people, and they are known to retaliate.
So that doing it properly, you can maintain anonymity and do it in stealth. And so to the attorneys in government, it's an instant MOAB. That means there's no resolution for them. For the organizations and the elected and appointed officials, there's a resolution available for them that they can adopt and put their John Henry on. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a writ of execution that they can a resolution to adopt and enforce the law, come into compliance, is provided for just the individuals. That's just the responsible corporate officers.
Okay.
There's no that's the only group that the resolution is provided for, because an organization is not able to communicate, is not able to adopt anything. Just the responsible corporate officers that are working for that organization are the ones that are able.
So those are two instant MOABs then, one for an attorney in government and one for an organization. Instant MOAB.
Correct. The organization is automatic $1 million fine.
Right. Now, we haven't told the people what a MOAB is. I think we should explain that is the mother of all bombs. That's
what these writs have been identified as by those who are using them. People are resigning. People are taking and running. I mean, once they realize that this is a real court and this is a real action, and these are real writs of execution that are really going to be enforced, and there's a $10,000 arrest reward to carry out the writ of body attachment, and it's a $20,000 arrest reward to carry out the body attachment on a member of the bar.
Well, yeah, that'll put the fear in them.
So it's my understanding that now, I think there's probably between 300 and 400 of these that have been served now. I'd say closer to 400 across the country, across the entire United States, from Arizona to New York, from Florida to Seattle. So,
and in some cases, there are those who have just abandoned post, not even resigned, just up and abandoned post and left town. There's others that are resigning. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, but think about it. I mean, if you got this and you saw you had two options, you have one option. You have to pay or settle. You have to call and you have to settle the debt. And if you don't settle the debt, it's clear right on those writs of execution, it's clear that there's a $10,000 bounty on their head, or a $20,000 bounty on their head if they're a member of the bar. So they would be in fear of being arrested in any moment after 30 days, and they didn't comply.
That's powerful, people. And you can do this. Anyone who's listening who's an adult Imagine you got to be an adult to do the service. Can a minor do the service?
Why not?
Oh my. Any citizen of any citizenship. Well, there you go. That could be a class project. You know, they're poisoning you in your schools. People.
Yeah, start with the principal and all the teachers.
Of course, class project wouldn't be anonymity, but the whole process could be taught, and then you can act without disclosing to all your classmates and your teachers, whoever. But the way to get the education, the way to get the knowledge on this is to join the People's Bureau of Investigation Telegram channel and attend the voice chats for questions, for instructions and questions and answers on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Time. What else do we want to share with the people at this juncture here?
Well, I think that pretty much covers it. You've got a court, and you have writs of execution. All you have to do is download the instructions as to how to execute them are there. You get the information you need to put on them. We have a FOIA request that we provided in every packet, so you can submit the FOIA request. It shows how to do that. You do it through your fax number. Nobody will know who it's coming from or who it's going to. It does have the PBI seal on the FOIA request, so it's easy for them to see it's an official document, official request. That will provide you with the two main things we want to know is what their social security number is and who their insurance provider is. We just found out, one of our associates found out today that all you have to do is type in who's the insurance carrier for blah, blah, blah town, such and such state. And it popped up on the internet exactly who the insurance provider was for that particular community, municipality. So we're learning it's quite easy to locate the insurance provider. And once we locate the insurance provider, now we have the source to pay the guaranteed payment of the funds in our sites. So as soon as we put their client behind bars, then we issue them an order to pay his debt immediately. If they fail to pay his debt, then it's a real simple process. Then we identify every responsible corporate officer that's associated with that particular organization, and we serve the organization MOAB and also every one of the responsible corporate officers in that insurance agency who are refusing to comply with the order of the court.
My. This is just unstoppable.
Sure is.
And you don't have to, the people don't have to spend money on ink or paper or postal service. Just a fax, which is $10 a month, unlimited faxing, I believe, and you can share that number with 10 people.
It's totally God sent.
Wow.
Time for people to take America back again.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. Well, D. Thomas, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me and explain this in the detail that you have. And so it's there for you folks to listen to over and over. In the description of this video, you can find a link to the PBI Telegram channel. You can find a link to, oh my goodness, Tom, tell where they can access the writs. Tell them that website. I've got it in the description.
On the National Standards Enforcement Agency website, which is, you go to nsea.us writs.
Absolutely. So you can find that in the description of this video. It will take you right to the writs. There's a link to the PBI Telegram channel. You can come and join Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday for the live voice chats. You can visit the channel anytime to study through the post and the pinned documents. And so I think we've covered this pretty good for the moment. Wouldn't you say, sir?
I think so. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And we'll be happy to come back and do this again with any updated information anytime that you desire, sir.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the video. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. Make sure to share this far and wide. Do your study and take action.